Hi, this is Russell Robinson, the CEO of the Jewish National Fund, and welcome to our Google Hangout this week. I have a special guest, a good friend, but more than a good friend, somebody who is involved in really the essence of life, water. A person who has taken on the challenge of trying to bring to all of us the solutions and the thoughts to bringing the issues of water to sometimes us in the western part of the world, in the United States here, that realize that water doesn't just come from your tap when you turn it on, that there is a whole process that brings it to that point. And one of the proud moments that we have, and you're going to hear from Seth in just a little bit, is that Israel is a country that was and is still somewhat water starved. It's in a region that only gets a certain amount, very small amount of water every year. It gets it between November and February. And yet in that barren land, in the land of desert, we produce melons that get exported from Israel, and tomatoes that get exported from Israel, beautiful flowers and wines that have become some of the great wines of the world. Now, why in that place called Israel, where the raindrops are coming down the same as everywhere else around that area, has Israel been able to ring the bell and say, we are winning this water crisis? And yet we read all over, even in the United States, California, and every place, the water crisis is coming and coming fast. And a man who really took the challenge to bring it in an interpretation to all of us, and to a book that he is writing that's coming out this month. It's called Let There Be Water by Seth Siegel. I'm going to talk to him a little bit. I'm going to show you the book, and we're going to talk about where you can order it at Amazon.com and be on his Twitter and Facebook. But Seth, welcome to Google Hangout.
Thank you, Russell. It's great to see you digitally or in person.
Thank you. So, Seth, you're a businessman. You're a lawyer by profession, by training, and yet you're writing a book that has been reviewed by Michael Bloomberg and Shimon Peres and Robert Kennedy and Stephen Solomon. And I'm telling you, I have read it, and other people have read it. It's a magnificent book that really talks about Israel solutions for water-starved world, but really how a world can make solutions. How do you come about writing a book about water?
Thank you, Russell. It's a kind of an interesting story. I like probably lots of other people, assume that when you think of Israel, you think of the desert, or you think of drought, or you think of just a parched place, a water-starved place. And a few years ago, I was at a seminar, and somebody happened to mention this coming global water crisis. And I said to myself, coming global water crisis, I didn't really even realize there was a crisis coming. Of course, this is before the California drought was on everyone's mind. And so I began thinking, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my family? And what does this mean for people in different parts of the world? As I started looking around at what solutions might be for this coming global water crisis, I discovered that not only did I have a good reason not to worry that Israel was going to go bone dry, but I discovered that Israel was the solution to many of the problems around the world. And as I learned that, I started telling friends of mine, many of whom were regular visitors to Israel, Jews and non-Jews alike. I would say to them, do like a little word game. I'd say, tell me something. When I say the word Israel, I say the word water. Tell me the first thing that comes to mind. And the answer usually, Russell, was not a lot of, or drought, or desert, or big problem, or something like that. And then when I would tell them, did you know that Israel has an abundance of water? It has a surplus of water? Every one of them found it hard to believe. So I thought this is a very nice confluence of two very important things. Well, first is there was not a high enough level of awareness of the coming global water crisis, and we need to make people aware. Sort of Paul Revere, the water isn't coming, the water isn't coming. And second of all is to share with people a really very remarkable and in fact inspiring story about how Israel, a little beleaguered, dry country, was able through all kinds of wonderful techniques and activities to make itself water secure, in fact, to make it immune from bad weather and immune even from drought.
So Seth, you wrote in your book stories about people who challenged the issue of water early on in Israel. Give me one of those stories. Give me an interesting story about some of those heroes that you wrote about in your book.
Well, you know, some of the heroes are even people who failed, Russell. It's kind of amazing. It was one of the joys of the book. I started learning about people, some of them long dead. And in some cases, I got lucky. I found out their children or their nephews and nieces, and I got a chance to interview them about these people. So I got a fuller picture. It was really a wonderful experience. But the failures were sometimes as fascinating as the successes. And if I could start for a moment just by talking about the failures, part of the reason Israel has been so successful is because it has had that entrepreneurial, startup-focused culture going back to even before there was a state, going back to the 1930s when the British were controlling the area. And there was this constant feeling, this can-do feeling, that they could change agriculture, they could change nature, and they could bend it to the benefit of the first of the Jewish people in Israel, and then to the world. And for example, Shimon Peres, who was magnificently generous with his time, he gave me about an hour-and-a-half interview. He told me that when he lived on a kibbutz before he got involved in government service, that the kibbutz came up with this crackpot idea. At the time, it wasn't known as crackpot, that if they warm up the irrigation water and irrigate the olive trees with warm water, they thought maybe it would produce more olive oil. He said, in retrospect, of course, it was idiotic. And lots of other crazy ideas were tried. Some of them worked fabulously. For example, there's a fascinating, interesting, curmudgeonly guy, didn't get along with people very easily, named Simcha Blas, who frankly was a revolutionary figure. He should be celebrated everywhere in the world because not only did he create the structure of Israel's water to this very day, but later in life, after he was already retired, the type of thing that we all do, he created an invention. He developed an invention that changed the world. He invented drip irrigation, which has changed the nature of agriculture in every country of the world. So there's all kinds of interesting people in desalination and people in agriculture and in seed breeding, and one after the next, inspiring figures who, against all odds, challenged conventional wisdom and won again and again.
So Seth, it's fascinating because I take drip irrigation, as you said, and you look at it. So there's an African farmer bringing food onto their plate because of this invention that has allowed them to grow crop and to have food and to provide for their family and for their community and their neighborhood. And that's about Israel and ingenuity and entrepreneurial spirit. Now, Israel has the Kinneret. Here it is, the Sea of Galilee up in the north. And yet you have this desert that is all the way down, to Eilat. And how did they decide that they were going to bring water to Israel?
You know, what happened was Ben-Gurion came up with this idea in the earliest days. I mean, I'm talking about, again, before there was a state, that they needed to have the Negev and the Arava, and that they needed that because he had his vision that there wouldn't be 500,000 Jews living in the land of Israel, but there'd be millions, and that they would need food, and they'd need places to live. And so his idea was that we will settle the Negev desert, we will settle the Arava, and we will be able to turn that into a, if not a breadbasket, then at least an orchard for no less than the people of Israel. He had no idea. He had no idea. In his wildest dreams, I went through his diaries. In his wildest dreams, he could never, Russell, have imagined that what is happening today has happened, where that Israel today exports billions with a B of dollars of peppers and melons and cucumbers and tomatoes and all of the kinds of wonderful fruits and vegetables to Europe and to Asia and to its own region. It's a most remarkable story, and that's all grown in the desert. And what you're doing is you're taking water, turning it into a value-added product in the terms of these plants, these fruits and vegetables, and exporting them, which means that Israel feels it has so much water that it's comfortable exporting billions of dollars a year of produce. It also, I'm sorry, just one other word, he also uses water for all kinds of outreach diplomacy, which I call in the book hydro diplomacy. It sends water to the Palestinians and the Kingdom of Jordan every day, but it also, fulfilling, as one person I interviewed, a very inspiring guy I interviewed, referred to it as living the biblical prophecy of Isaiah of being a light unto the nations. Israel goes to the most wretched places in Asia and Africa and South America and helps them get water, helps them develop farms, and helps bring people out of the most dire poverty. It's a beautiful and inspiring story.
So two more. One, bring it back home to us. You see what's happening in the United States. You know, I saw a comedian on TV. He said to the state of California, he said, you know, they announced that we've got like 2 more years of water. It's kind of important. It's not a Hershey bar that we're going to be out of. We're water, and yet it's not making it to the top of the news. What do you take back home? What should we be looking at? What should we be doing? What does Israel water issues? Let there be water. How does that come home to us?
Okay, one of the things that I say in the book, and I appreciate you mentioning that the book. One of the things I say in the book is that one of the most important things we could be doing in the United States is to reprioritizing water as they do in Israel. And the reason why Israel is a success in water is that it has top mind share of its national leaders and of its lots of other civic leaders. Whereas in America, we talk about energy endlessly. I defy you to ever go to a newspaper on any day of the week and not find at least one article about oil or coal or gas or renewables. But most days, you can go days or weeks sometimes, unless there's a drought or a water main break, without seeing a single story about water. And so the best thing we can do, all those people on this Google Hangout can do, the best thing we can do is to become very engaged in the idea of demanding of our political leaders that water become a high priority in our society. We don't want to wait until the water runs out. We want to have a proactive 20, 30, and 40-year plan, as Israel does, so that we don't find ourselves without water. Populations grow, industries change, climate changes. Some of these things happen suddenly, and if you don't have a plan in place, you can find yourself caught very short.
So Seth, first off, before I ask the last, where can we get the book?
Well, we're very blessed. Our publisher, St. Martin's Press, has gotten placement virtually everywhere in the country. Barnes & Noble, the book comes out September 15th, the second day.
I heard something about Barnes & Noble. What do you want to tell the viewers?
Well, it's really like a very nice story. Barnes & Noble, thank you, Russell. Barnes & Noble announced that starting on the day it goes on sale, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, September 15th, it's going to be on the front nonfiction table as you walk in every Barnes & Noble store in the U.S. and Canada. So that's great news. You can also pre-order it right now on Barnes & Noble. You can pre-order it on Amazon. You can pre-order on Books A Million. Many of them right now have a pre-order discount of significant size. And if you just type in Amazon or Barnes & Noble or your other favorite website and type in the words "Let There Be Water," it'll direct you directly to the page. You can also I'll tell you a second. You can also go to your local bookseller and reserve a copy. Almost every independent bookseller in the country now is taking the book. The other thing you can do, and thank you for reminding me, the other thing you can do is we've set up a beautiful website at Seth M. Siegel, SETHMSIEGEL.com. Go to that website and you get all kinds of interesting activities, including winning a sweepstakes opportunity for a free trip to Israel. But you can click and find a way to order the book. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Seth M. Siegel, and there'll be lots and lots of ways for you to learn more about the book and learn all about great innovations from Israel.
So Seth, we are going to also on the Google Hangout and on our Facebook and our Twitter account and put the information about your website and about ordering the book. I know that we're going to be going on a nationwide tour with you as well. I think there's 11 or 13 community states which have already been booked. State of California, we're going to have a statewide conference. State of Texas, a lot of other places, other states, and bringing in mayors and state officials and community officials. So what you said about what we can do, and I think what you're going to do here, Seth, is give a wake-up call. A wake-up call and a salute to Israel all at the same time. A wake-up call to the world, to our own community, to our own neighborhood. It's not a matter of watering your grass just 3 times a week. It's a matter of what we're going to do and make those policies, because some of the great places of the world that are drought ridden today and void of vegetation could have maybe turned it around by just being able to preserve water and create water.
No question.
Desert and turned it into green. And I think your book, your colors of your book, the name of your book, Let There Be Water, the kind of stories that are in here is telling the world, wake up, let there be water. It's up to you. It's up to me. It's up to all of us. Seth, your final words to the group.
I want to just say a last word if I can. And I know you didn't expect this. I really want to give a big shout out to JNF because I spent a lot of time in Israel researching this book. I interviewed more than 220 people for the book. And you know what came to me again and again and again is that Israel did great things and they did most of the heavy lifting, but they didn't do it alone. And JNF, God bless JNF. JNF helped give ideas, helped give money, helped give encouragement, and lots of the greatest things going on in Israel is as a result of partnership, which of course speaks to the vision of you personally, Russell, and of your great staff, but it also speaks to the extraordinary generosity of JNF donors going back actually decades, and certainly to the JNF donors of today. Israel's done great things, but the water battle is not completely won, and there's still great things to be done.
Thank you very much. Let There Be Water, Seth M. Siegel. Go online, order his book in advance. You'll be able to hear about him coming to a community at your community or a community near you. Seth, thank you. And I want to wish everybody on my CEO Google Hangout a little early, happy and a healthy new year to all of you. And we always say here, a glass of water, we never just use once at JNF or in Israel. And Seth, thank you for bringing this unbelievable story alive to us and the essence of life to all of our viewers here on Google Hangout. Thank you all.
Thank you. I'm honored to be there.